Hey everybody, so I don't know if you know how to make apple cider, but this is how I do it. I have my old press underneath here. This is just a sheet that I line inside one of the buckets. Now the bucket does sit on a slide, and I wash everything down prior to use. Now there's two tracks on the bottom. You don't want them this way, so when it slides it's hard. You want them to slide this way, so pay attention to that when you put it on, so that the boards slide forward. Now I actually have two of these buckets, but I only have one board. The reason for two buckets is twice as fast, right? As this bucket gets crushed into, then it slides forward. Someone can be crushing into the next bucket, then you just take it out and swap them back and forth. But since I only have one, that bucket goes there, and my screw is a little loose, but that's a whole nother story. So when the bucket goes in here, why the sheet? The sheet goes into the bucket mainly so when you're pressing the apple peels and the apple bits, it doesn't just come out through all these slots. So we put the sheet in there just so that it keeps more of the peels in there and gets more of the juice out, versus letting all the peels out and then you get a big mess, because then all the peels will go into your bucket, and you gotta strain those out and then maybe repress them or whatever. So I'll put that here in a second. The other part is the drain is here in the front. Got my bucket that I'm going to catch with and put underneath, and I did make a modified cookie pan with a hole in the center, because since it's old and the front tray where it catches all the juice does leak kind of over and over different spots, I did have little pans there that was just a pain in the butt, because when you're cranking this, you'll see it shifts. So made the pan, goes all the way across the whole front, and a little extra. I just positioned the bucket so that that pan is nice and solid. That way it catches everything. I don't lose hardly anything. And then I have a secondary bucket. I guess I should put that over here to save a little bit more time, but secondary bucket to pour into, and a strainer. You can buy these off of Amazon, or this was actually for my honey, and it just got reused for the apple cider. Now when you're crushing, you will get little bits and pieces of what looks like black. It's just parts of the peel, because they're getting pressed, they're oxidizing and everything else, so you will get little black bits in there, just vitamins and minerals. Spatula is basically for at the very end to kind of clean up that tray, to push it all towards the hole so it drains into the pan. You can just pick it up and drip it into the bucket. All right, I'm going to pause for a second so that I can get that in there, and then I'll show you what's next. All right, so with the sheet in here, it's make sure your screws aren't coming out, but the sheet is in there, and then up here is your crusher. So you're just going to load up the apples, and then this just cranks around and around. Now this does have a pulley on it, so that, I think I'm in camera, this does have a pulley on it, so you could hook up a motor to it. The apples just get in a water bath. Let me get that better. Apples get in a water bath, and it's mainly to wash off any of the residue on the outside of the apple. It also chills the apples so that they crush better, is what I've been told. Don't know for sure. We throw some pears in there too. You can make pear juice. We were thinking about throwing some grapes in there just to add a little bit more flavor. Just anything and everything. You can crush grapes with this. I do have a different crusher for the grapes, a little finer teeth on there. But it just crushes up and then it falls down underneath here. Let me show you. when you are done crushing, take that sheet, push it all in on top so it covers everything, and then you have your nice big round disc with the board attached to the back. It's going to go on top of that, so it pushes it down and squeezes it all out. That's what this here's for. This turns. You can kind of see the residue of where it sits. Try to get it as even as possible so it goes down and presses. It's starting to come apart. I'm going to have to make another one of these. Got to remember, this machine was built in 1896, so pretty old. So, there's also, there it is, my stick, and this just goes in between the slots so it makes it easier to turn and press it. 2 of these bags doesn't quite fill up that hopper, and when I fill it up, I'll show you. I'll stuff the sheet over it, which it used to be white. You can see how many times we've used it, and then we press it, and then I'll actually push it back, and I'll put more apples on top of it and then press it again just to get that extra press. Some people like to put a block in between just to push it down further, but to each their own. So here's where I fold it in and put the top on. I just work from one side, work my way around, tucking it up and over. Kind of get it where you want it. Put your top on. You may have to readjust your bucket and such. And there's already some juice coming out even before you start pressing. And if you can get food grade grease, which they actually do make that, I lubed up the spindle there and then the wheels, because otherwise it gets really noisy. All right, let's get you closer. All right, there's the juice. The spindle just presses down on here, presses all the apples down, and you can see the slots where, as it gets further pressed down, these will start to fall out, and that's where those apple bits will start to fall out. There is a little bit of a drain here. It drains down here. I'm not completely on level ground, so it does tend to go over to this side. But I just made that hole so eventually it fills up on here and falls in. All right, let's press it a little bit more. So I can still do it by hand, but I will grab my stick so it's handy. Don't get overzealous and really crank down on that, because the fluid will go everywhere if you're using a pan like this. Now, that rail is high enough that if you have a good seal on this front board, then it won't matter so much. My driveway is slightly angled, so it is kind of messing with the flow, but it is what it is. Again, don't get overzealous because it will flow faster than the pan can catch. And like I said, if you have that tray down there and that works fine, then you have no problem. You can get about 2 inches worth of juice in there and it'll just flow in your bucket. About 2 bags will make about 3 to 4 gallons, just depending on the type of apple and the juice content in the apple. That's basically how you do it. So once that bucket gets pretty full, I take the pressure off of the bucket, because otherwise you're still going to be draining. So if you take the pressure off that, then you can drain that pan out, take the bucket out underneath, and fill it in through the other bucket that has a strainer. Now, you can, if you have 2 buckets, just slap out the buckets. But you are going to have to strain it at some point. Got an apple seed between my fingers. You are going to have to strain it at some point, unless you really just like drinking all the extra stuff. It will settle in the bottom of your bottling process, whatever you bottle into, milk jugs, 2-liter bottles, whatever. It will settle to the bottom, and it's no big deal. We just like to take it out because it can cause it to ferment slightly. So, all right, if you got any questions, comment down below, and please like and subscribe my channel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.